everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my October wrap up. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how this wrap up is going to go because first of all I need to rush through it because I don't have long to go until I go on holiday to Iceland. As you are watching this, I will actually probably be at my Airbnb in Iceland, and so that means that I do have to record this really quickly, edit it and upload it before Thursday night before I go. So I feel like I'm going to have to rush through everything, and in addition to that I can't really remember what I read in October. So I have my spreadsheet here and I'm gonna have to read from that, which is really quite annoying. Please stick around. Please continue to watch this video. I'm not a complete mess all of the time. Okay, so first of all, I read I think 10 or 11 books in October. One was like a tiny novella. First of all, I read Hide by Kiersten. I barely remember reading this one, to be honest. This is about a group of people who are all brought together to compete to spend several nights in an amusement park, or several days rather, and then they come out of the amusement park at night and then go back the next day, and each day I think 2 people are eliminated if they get caught. So they're playing like hide and seek in this abandoned amusement park. Things I liked about this: the pace. It's a very short book, and I think Kiersten often writes like tiny books. I don't really get on with most of her books, to be honest with you. I didn't love Paranormal Sea. I thought it was way too quirky. I gave this one 3 stars because I didn't hate it, I just didn't love it, and I feel like she could have done so much more with this, and I can't really say why because of spoilers, but the whole abandoned amusement park kind of vibe could have been expanded upon. It was very strange to have the characters hiding out during the day and then coming straight back at night, because the whole concept of them hiding during the day means that they can't really do much and there's not much happening and it's not very action-packed. So yeah, it was a very interesting sort of twist or take on the concept. I don't know, I feel like it could have been better, so 3 stars for this one. I then read a couple, 3 in fact, Miranda books. I'm not going to talk about these in too much detail because I will be talking about them in a whole separate video. So first I read Such a Quiet Place, and I gave this one 3 stars. This is a kind of not cozy, a small town mystery thriller. It's set in this like picture perfect neighborhood where all the neighbors know each other and they all like cook each other dinner and stuff, but they're actually secretly not very nice. And a few years ago a couple was killed in their house and another neighbor was arrested for it, but now that neighbor is being released because it's been sort of proven that she didn't do it, or it hasn't been proven that she did do it. She decides to come back to the neighborhood and all the other neighbors are like, oh my god, why is she back, what's she doing here, and they're all gossiping about her, and she comes back to live with the main character because she was previously her housemate. It has such a good concept, but I just found it quite boring. I gave it 3 stars, so I didn't hate it, I liked it, I just feel like it could have been so much better. I really liked the small town neighborhood vibe where everyone knows each other and everyone has secrets, but I don't think it would really like reached its potential. But again, I will talk about this more in my Miranda video. I read The Perfect Stranger, which I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This is about a main character who again lives with a housemate, and the housemate disappears and the main character has to try and figure out what happened to her friend. That's all I want to say about this one. It's very twisty and turny. It was really good, really fast paced, and I enjoyed the twists a lot. Some of it was a little bit convoluted, but I don't think that really mattered at all. And then I read The Girl from Widow Hills, which I gave 1 star because it was really bad, and I will talk about why in my Miranda video. So if you aren't subscribed and you want to see that video, please do subscribe so that it pops up on your feed when I eventually get around to editing it. I read Killjoy by Holly Jackson, which is a novella in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. This is the prequel to the first book, so I would recommend actually reading the main trilogy, or at least the first book, before you read this one. This basically introduces Pip, talks about how she discovered her love for true crime and solving cases and things. To be honest, I don't think, if you haven't read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the first book, or the entire trilogy, I don't think you'll love Pip in this one. She comes across as very annoying, but because I already know her, I know what her personality is like and why she comes across as so frustrating. So I would recommend this one. I gave it 5 stars. It was on point. I loved it. I love Pip and I love all her friends and the main characters. I love that it gives you a little bit of an insight. It drops the kind of mystery from the first book in there, so it leaves you intrigued. It was very good. I'm really glad that I got my hands on this one. I don't think this is published in the US because it was published here for World Book Day. Every year they post some like £1 short stories or novellas so that kids can use their World Book Day token on them. I also read The It Girl by Ruth Ware, who is one of my all-time favourite authors. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favourite of hers. If you want to know what my favourite is, you can go and check out my Ruth Ware video where I discuss which of her books is the best. This one is more of a slow burn mystery than her other books. It's with a new publisher, and I do wonder if that's why the vibe is slightly different. This one is about a woman whose name I can't remember. She went to university at Oxford and she had a kind of housemate roommate sort of thing. They each lived in separate rooms, but they had a shared living area. Years ago when they were at college, that housemate roommate died, and then in the present day, now that the main character is grown up and married and also pregnant, the person who was convicted of the roommate's murder also dies, which would be good, except it has brought about a whole like reignition of all the trauma that the main character was going through at the time, with her housemate literally being murdered and her discovering the body. And it kind of turns out that maybe this guy didn't do it because he's always said that he was innocent, and so the main character is kind of looking into whether he could have or not, and maybe her testimony at the time was wrong, so she's freaking out about that, all while, like I said, being pregnant. So it's not a great situation for her. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was slow, a lot slower than her previous books. I don't think that's a bad thing. I really enjoyed the vibe, and because it's set in Oxford, in an Oxford college, I feel like the slower vibe fit the book quite well. A couple of things I didn't like about it. First of all, I didn't like the resolution. It felt like, I can't really talk about it without spoilers, so I'm going to do a full review on this one where I talk about spoilers at the end, because I really want to talk about the treatment of working class people, and I can't here. And then also I didn't really love the love interest / husband for various reasons, again, which I will talk about in my review video. I then read The Gilded Cage, which is the YA fantasy book. This is the sequel to The Prison Healer, which I loved when I read it last year. I think I gave it 4 stars, and then I read this one and I gave it 4.5. This series gets better and better, and I'm so close to picking up the 3rd book in the trilogy. I just need a bit more time, and I need to not be going on holiday because I can't take that book with me because it's huge. Going back, this is a YA fantasy series about a main character called Kiva who was thrown into prison when she was a child. She and her father were imprisoned, and because she didn't have anyone to claim her, basically, she only had her father, she had to live with him, and he was in prison, so that's why a child is in prison with her father, if that makes any sense at all. It's a fantasy world, it doesn't really have to make that much sense. It also introduces elemental powers of some sort. The main character in the 1st book has to go through some trials, elemental trials, because the rebel queen later gets imprisoned and the main character has to take her place because that's what the rebel note tells her to do. It's like an adventure story but YA fantasy. It's so fast paced. I love the sequel so much. I guessed most of the twists because it was pretty obvious who was terrible and who was not, but that's okay. I still loved it, and I cannot wait to read the 3rd book. This is such a good trilogy, and I can't wait to see what this author comes out with next. I then read The Retreat, which I gave 3.5 stars, maybe 3. I'm probably going to lower that rating. This is the kind of sequel to The Sanatorium, which I read during another Do His 24-hour readathon. Then I read this one for the readathon as well in October. This follows the same detective woman from the 1st book who has been taken a break because she is a bit traumatized by her job, and now she is called to an island off the coast of, I think it's Devon. It's like a resort retreat sort of thing where previously bad things happened and now bad things are happening again. She has to investigate a death there. I enjoyed it. It was fairly fast paced. It took a little while to get into. It wasn't the best, and I think it introduced a few silly things that the 1st book didn't have. For example, at one point someone has to swim across the sea during a storm, and I just could not get over that because that's a really stupid idea no matter what kind of situation you're in. So yeah, I think I'm probably gonna give this a 3-star. I might carry on with the series if it becomes a longer series, otherwise I'm happy with it wrapping up here. I then read Carrie, Soto is Back by Jenkins Reid. I loved this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's not a 5-star read. It's not as good as Daisy Jones. It made me really care about tennis. So this is about a woman called Carrie Soto who used to be a tennis star, and she won a bunch of world records, and then she retired because she hurt herself. Like, she got a sports injury and then couldn't really make a comeback, and she only wanted to come back if she was the best, and she couldn't, so she retired, and now someone else is kind of rising speedily up the tennis ranks, about to win more titles than Carrie Soto did. So Carrie Soto is like, I'm not having that, I want to be the world record holder, and she comes back to tennis and starts retraining and reconnecting with people from her past. It was so good. I loved the romance in this one. It was like a slow burn spanning months and years romance, and I loved it so much. I'm going to do a full review on this one as well, I think, because I really want to talk about it with you guys and recommend it to you. Then I read Exiles by Jane Harper. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's probably more of a 3, but because I love Jane Harper so much, I'm going to round it up to a 3.5. But this is the 3rd book in the Aaron Falk series. He's a financial investigator from Melbourne, and he keeps getting caught up in these small town mysteries where people die or are killed or just disappear, and that's what's happened in this one. He goes to his friend's or godson's christening, and a year before, a woman went missing and left her daughter left her baby in a pram at a festival, and she just disappeared. So Aaron Falk kind of gets involved in the investigation there. My problem with this one is that Aaron Falk wasn't involved in the investigation enough. He spent most of the book kind of walking around and talking to the locals, and the locals were a lot more interesting than Aaron Falk, which could also be said of the second book in the series, Force of Nature, but in The Dry he was so connected with that, absolutely everything, because he had so much history in that town, and that's why I loved it. Unfortunately that wasn't the case here. When I say the other characters, the locals, are more interesting, some of them were still really freaking boring, but I was very intrigued by the mystery and I got really involved in the relationships between all of the characters. I just wish Aaron Falk had done a bit more investigating in this one, because that would have been a lot more interesting. And then at the end, when they finally figure out what happened, you don't really see the resolution. Like, you're told afterwards that something happened, and then you don't really see them sort of like, I don't know, the equivalent of like rugby tackling the offender. I'm trying not to spoil it, can you tell? Again, I might do a full review on this one as well. Let me know in the comments below if you would enjoy that. And then finally, I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I'm going to do a full review on this one as well, partly because I've got a lot to say about it, partly because I don't have loads of time for this wrap up. This one follows a woman called Daisy Darker whose grandmother owns a house on an island off the coast of Cornwall. Her grandmother was told years and years ago by a fortune teller that she wouldn't live past the age of 80. It's the eve of the grandmother's 80th birthday, and she calls her entire family back to the house on the island as kind of like one last get together, or like, it happens every year on her birthday, but this is a particularly special one. And then people start to die. So I did really enjoy this one. I like the twist at the end. It's not a twist that I usually enjoy. I can think of many examples where I haven't liked that kind of twist, but I think Alice Feeney pulled it off quite well. And I did find this to be very, very slow. It's more of a mystery than a thriller, I would say. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, so I didn't love it, but I definitely didn't hate it, and I'm glad that I read it because it was really, really interesting, and it was interesting to see all of these characters sort of move about one another while never really connecting, and all of their secrets and lies and stuff. I did think some of the characters felt a bit like a caricature at points in certain situations, but that was okay. I didn't really mind. So yeah, that was my very rushed, I apologise, October wrap up. By the time you're watching this, like I said, I will be in Iceland, but please leave a comment below to tell me if you've read any of these books, if you're interested in them. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video. It tells the algorithm that my videos aren't completely crap. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!